Welcome back, everybody. It's Sam Horseman here for our IMPACT10X Sustainability. And as always, we have in our Sustainability Lounge our special guests who are our mentors, our advisors, and our thought leaders are doing great work across Australia and also the world. And today I get an opportunity to have a conversation, a critical conversation with Dan Messina. And Dan is a robotics and automation specialist. He's also the founder and managing director of NXTGEN Industries. And when you look back into Dan's history, he actually built his first robot when he was 17. And he won the NECA Innovation Award. And apparently, based on Dan's feedback to me, that's where it all started for him. He's a mechanical engineer and also a tech enthusiast. I always enjoy chatting to Dan. We talk for hours and hours. And he also has this amazing vision and mission in Australia around robotic technology and industry, and founded NextGen in 2019. And he has this collaborative paradigm that links people and machines that, to produce wonderful outcomes. And I've always been so fortunate to hear about all the great work that you're doing, Dan. And especially here in tropical North Queensland, I hear you are basically working on a banana farm just recently. So over to you. I want to hear more about your story and what you see in automation, robotics, and sustainability.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sam. Yeah, as you pointed out, started building robots back when I was 17, and it's always been a big passion of mine. But it wasn't until I entered into a different industry in construction where I really found that automation and technology really hasn't played a major role within those industries. So it was about 6 or 7 years ago, where I thought, you know what, how about I bring some of the skills around robotics and introduce them into these industries. And construction was the application of the industry that I was working in at the time, specifically within buildings. And that's where I introduced a robot to basically scan the interiors of spaces and to encourage digital design adoption from that moment on. And that's basically how NextGen Industry started. Effectively, we saw more needs coming through with robots, and introducing them into new industries, and hence the name. The industry, or one of the industries that we're working at the moment, is within the banana industry. We are looking at developing an automated system to detect defects within bananas, and through all of this, it's been a highly valuable and sought, form of automation, purely because it's highly intense in regards to labor, and we have got a shortage in the agricultural sector. In the industry of harvesting, picking, and processing, there is a huge desire for automation, particularly around packing lines, tuning the automation processes and ensuring that we can be as efficient as possible. What this does is it allows us to be a lot more accurate, a lot more efficient with our resources, energy as well, less wastage. When we can control these things with automation, we see savings across the board. Agriculture is one industry that we serve, but we're also serving industries in the building space, where we're scanning facades for defects. We're automating inspections for trains. We're also developing other inspections for which we can't go into too much details, but other automated equipments and machines. And the sole driver for this, in all honesty, is to enable AI adoption. We know that if we're able to be a lot more resourceful around data and being able to capture copious amounts of data through automated means, it means that we can make a lot more informed decisions. And when it comes to being sustainable and moving into the future and being and making more informed decisions. The only way we're going to do that is through capturing data. And through our systems, whether they're wheeled robots or robots being suspended and traverse down high-rise buildings or inspecting bananas on a banana farm, we're looking at capturing that data and being able to provide that information to business owners, to the operation segments of these businesses, and which will allow them to make better decisions and operate in a much smoother and economical way.
Perfect. And it also aligns to the UN SDG goals around food security, right?
Correct.
Especially with this, banana farm
Mhm.
project. So I hear less waste, improved food security,
Mhm.
more efficiency, more effectiveness, and obviously this translates into effective business practice, right?
Absolutely.
And you
Less.
brought, yeah,
Yep.
and
Sorry.
sorry, and you brought up a really fantastic point. So why aren't we all doing this more? And you bring up this adoption piece. Can you speak to a little bit more about that, especially what's happening in Australia?
Yeah, adoption is a real challenge at the moment, and specifically in Australia, it's the risk of the unknown, and businesses are very much used to operating in a particular way, and it only really takes thought leaders and thought provokers to really embrace change, um, and we need these types of leaders to really push these initiatives. We sit in a very niche, tech space, and tech can take form in many different shades of light. But what really is important is the thought leaders from industry specific businesses. Whether it's farming, whether it's construction, or whether it's in rail, whatever it may be. We need these thought leaders, and we need to partner up with these technology experts, because when we start bringing skills and innovation, or skills and knowledge from different industries, that's where we innovate, right? It's where we cross pollinate between industries, and it's where we can introduce findings from one industry to the other. So when we reflect back on um, trying to encourage adoption within businesses, it's really an education piece. We're trying to educate that we may not have the answer right now, but there needs to be a stepping process. And we very much talk about AI on a day-to-day basis. And AI, you start from ground up, you start from a thought of saying, we want something to be detected. And the only way you can detect something is by teaching it. And just like us as humans, it takes years for us to develop our skills, develop our knowledge, in various forms, whether it's maths, English, writing, reading. We evolve over time, and these systems also evolve over time. All right, but it requires effort, it requires work, and it requires that nurture. So the answer doesn't come straight away, but it requires these thought leaders and the innovators and collaboration, most importantly, to come together and to nurture these systems. And like I said before, it won't happen overnight, but in 5 to 10 years times, we'll start to see some really, really big changes here in Australia.
Fantastic. Which leads me into my next question for you is, so we've got this great, innovation cohort that we're running right
Mhm.
now for Impact 10X, from campuses from Brisbane, from Singapore, from Cairns and Townsville. And they're all at that point of working on their prototypes.
Mhm.
They've shifted from their POC, they're coming into their prototypes, working on their business model canvas. So, what's some advice that you could give them in order to really, deep dive and to keep their focus on moving into their minimal viable product, ready for October 11th, by the way, which is demo day?
That's how exciting! I honestly love the phase of that phase of getting their canvases up and running. It's where you're on the verge of creating this business model, and you're thinking about value, and you're thinking about how you're trying to bring a product into fruition. And my best advice that I can give to everyone involved is you've got to think with the end in mind, right? You've got to think about value, ultimately value, and you've got to think about how the impact that it can have and how it scales. If we're not thinking of the big picture, and we're not thinking about how it's going to look like in 5 or 10 years' time, we're effectively limiting ourselves. Um, at the end of the day, people and businesses will pay if it provides value. And if you have to sit there convincing someone that your system is valuable, then you probably have to rethink about how it's being deployed, or how it's how it might be operated, or some certain logistics of it, to ensure that the end result or the end application is can basically speak for itself. So it doesn't actually require you to be sitting there to pitch your idea, because the product and the solution is screams value. And and if it does scale well, and tech these days does, purely around the cloud, and being cloud and the internet being as great as it is, if it scales up, and if the value is well, and of course the cost, obviously your associated costs, we're always going back to that canvas model. The business model, will eventually come, and people will effectively buy into the solution or the product that comes out of it.
Awesome. And I'm sure you probably went through lots of iterations for NextGen Industries, right, with your business model canvas?
Absolutely. For us, we thought we were starting off as a services based business, where we're just providing engineering expertise. But what we found in our work is businesses didn't really want to fork up all this capital into developing an idea that had no real foundation or fundamental. So we knew that in order to bring down those barriers, we had to develop some level of intellectual property to effectively de-risk the development process, the prototyping phase, and to reduce the amount of capital that goes into R&D and prototyping. And for those reasons, we've got our own data capture systems, we've got our own autonomous solutions, and we take them into modules. And our modules are basically deployed on different projects, and can be configured in different ways. And we've gone from doing projects that took 9 to 12 months, and we're doing prototypes at that TRL level 6 mark within 3 months. So that upfront investment and that time investment, we're actually seeing results much more quickly, and our clients are getting engaged early. They can see the value that we bring, and we're also partnering up so we can effectively continue to deliver value in partnership with these businesses.
Very smart, extremely smart. So, and that I love that idea of reverse engineering, like you mentioned, thinking with that end in mind, right?
Mhm.
Because you can really build great practices back into that.
Absolutely,
Mm.
absolutely. It's a learning process, and when you look at a final, what something may look like in the end, and you start chipping away, it's really important, because a lot of people start coming up with these ideas on one end, and they may not think of the end value, or
Mm.
the end application, or the end costs. And when you kind of go from the ends, kind of reversing backwards, and from the front going forward, or the design side moving forward, you get yourself into this middle ground, and you need to kind of align things from both ends. And that's the difficult part in business development. And if you're not looking at the end, and you're only focusing on the front end, then you'll find that this matchmaking area is going to be a lot harder. So it's really important to progress things on both sides. So, from a market level, when you're starting to pitch to businesses, you're looking at, providing a solution that looks like this on this side, and this is where you are now, but you need that roadmap to get there. So that's that middle area.
Awesome. Excellent advice. How about we finish off on one last question, which is,
Mhm.
I really would love to hear the answer to this. If we were to sort of do a fast track
Mhm.
10 years from now, and we're looking at automation, we're looking at robotics, we're looking at AI,
Mhm.
what's your future predictions? What does our world look like
The big
in 10
question.
years? I know that's a tough one, but I just want to get into that Dan's mind. What
I
does our world look like in Australia, let's say, in 10 years, just based on what you're seeing right now and what's possible?
yeah, I think I'll break it down into, I'm going to say, three key areas.
Hmm. Cool.
One's AI,
Yep.
one's automation,
Hmm.
and the other's solutions, products.
Okay.
And I'll explain why they're three very, very different things. So AI and automation, we talk robots, we talk, well, the second one is physical automation. Um, the first two dot points about AI and physical automation components, we're talking robots, they are those products in themselves. We're going to start seeing more competition, right? Because the cost of um, the cost of things are always, going down purely because competition is coming out. Technology is coming through, and we're starting to see step changes in tech. Which brings me to kind of the third element, which is the solutions. So it's basically where we look at AI as a kind of an entity, components as another entity, hardware, and then the actual solution, which basically comprises bits of both worlds to give you some type of product. What we're finding now is people are starting to be very innovative. They're saying, well, why can't we use AI, or why can't we use robots to do this? And there's a value piece to developing this solution. But what we find is, maybe the robots or the hardware technology is not there, or maybe the AI is missing. So what we're finding is, in the next 5 years, we'll start seeing AI and mechanical systems, more products coming into kind of their next generation, which will start to provide a whole new world of products that we don't currently have. And to look back maybe 5 years ago, or even 3 years ago, when robotic vacuum cleaners first starting coming out.
Roomba.
Roombas, that's it. It started off with the iRobot, and now they're everywhere, right? We've
Yeah,
got
absolutely.
a lot more. Same with 3D printing. Now that's
Hmm.
revolutionized. That's going through its second and third wave right now. So we're actually going through probably what I call I'd say the first wave, where we've got some decent technology and we're starting to see some good solutions that are coming out of that. But the next wave in the next 5 years is where technology and the building blocks are effectively going to go through their first step change, and we're going to get their second iterations of solutions, and it's going to scale. And that's where we start to see scaling happen. More people introducing robots into applications, more people using AI as their business, as a tool to to provide value to their business model. And so yeah, we're going through that second wave now. So the way I see it is, in 10 years, I wouldn't be surprised if most businesses are purely operating on the cloud. And I'd say 60 to 80% of businesses will have some type of cloud component, where they'd be relying on AI, whether it's invoicing, whether it's, reconciliation on one end, to all the way to sorting systems and defect detection systems. So I see 10 years being a very different world to where we are today.
Awesome. Thanks for that vision and that viewpoint. That's fantastic. The next gen industries, right? That's what,
That's it.
yeah, exactly. And you almost like gave me an explanation of like what the next industrial revolution, and we've been so stuck on IR 4.0, right?
Yeah.
And that has been all of the blockchain, the robotics,
Mhm.
AI, etc. And now we're seeing this new wave of what potentially the Industrial Revolution 5.0 looks like. And I
Yeah.
think you gave us a viewpoint into that, which is awesome. Well, Dan, it's a pleasure to have you here in our sustainability lounge, and thanks so much for your insights. It's remarkable. You always, as I said, I love sitting and having a chat with you because you always open up my mind in some different way. So, thank you so much for all the great work you do, and look forward to seeing you at our next Impact 10X event. Thanks so
Yeah.
much.
No worries. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Bye bye.